This is Dale from Growing Ground, and today we're going to talk about pruning trees and shrubs. Okay, there's several different pruning tools. A lot of people use hedge shears. You cut your yews and shrubs and hedges. And if you have to, you can use a hedge shear, but my opinion of hedge shears is there. I use a hand pruner. In my case, it's a Felco tube. It's a sharp pruner. If I had a piece of paper, I could cut a piece of paper for you. These things are so sharp. These are a $35, $40 pruner, but they work. If you don't lose them, you'll never replace them. There's replaceable blades. You can sharpen them. But so many people have 6 pairs of pruners laying around that won't cut anything. You buy a pair of Felcos once and they'll work. Anvil pruners are another type where the blade presses against an anvil to cut. I'm not fond of anvils. I like bypass pruners. They work like scissors. And last but not least, too many people go to try and cut big branches they shouldn't be cutting with a pruner. Saws. Felco makes this wonderful little saw. It folds open. It's sharp. It'll cut through anything like you won't believe, including your fingers, so be careful. When you're done, you fold it up, stick it in your pocket, and you walk around, you do your next thing. Oh, I need my saw again. You pull it out, you use it, you put it back in. I can cut off a 5 or 6 inch branch with this. And people have these big bow saws, all this stuff. This tool, 21, 22 bucks, works. We also have the pole pruners. I'm not fond of pole pruners. They reach places where you can't get other things. You really can't make nice cuts with this. You're better off if you use a ladder and your hand tools. But if you have to use them, a pole pruner will give you some more reach to get something out of the way. And that's your pruning basics. One of the keys to pruning trees is deciding what to cut, of course. Too often people say, oh, this branch is hanging down in my way here. Here, I'll cut this off and see there. That's not the proper way to prune anything. You need to make a cut at a lateral with a branch. You can cut this here, a good clean cut, or we could go back and take the entire branch out, which in this case is what I'm going to do. I made a nice flush cut right here. There's no stump sticking out. Too many people leave a stump sticking out. If you look over here, this was cut properly a year ago, and see how it's starting to roll over and heal? When you leave a stump sticking out, it can't heal properly. So always make a nice flush cut and your tree will heal properly. Quite often, Bradford pears, crab apples, and many of your fruit trees grow these suckers or water sprouts. They just grow straight up and into the tree. And we remove those. You can use the saw, you can take your pruners, again make that clean cut, get them down at the very base. But water sprouts and suckers grow straight up into the tree and they really don't bloom much, they don't produce fruit much. They're really just excess baggage on the tree. Here this is growing up and rubbing on a good branch, so we want that one gone. Some people like pruning paint, some people don't. I put pruning paint on big cuts. Little stuff, I leave it to heal by itself. This is a big one that should have been pruned off several years ago. But water sprouts are just unnecessary and they're not good for the tree, and lets the tree open up, get some air through the center of particularly a fruit tree. Lets them breathe better. Helps prevent fungus problems because the air can circulate better. But proper pruning of water sprouts. As I said earlier, I'm not a big fan of pole pruners, but sometimes you need them. If you don't have a ladder, you have a branch you just got to get, you can use one. You can reach up here, get in the right spot, try and get as close to the trunk as possible, and away we go. So pole pruners are useful to reach up places where you can't get with anything else. They serve a purpose, but I prefer a ladder and a hand tool and a good close cut. When you prune a weeping plant or an umbrella-shaped plant, it's important to cut at the proper place. Each bud points in a direction that's going to be growing, and you want to maintain the umbrella shape. If I cut at this bud, it's going to shoot up. Well, we don't want up. This branch over here, somebody pruned wrong a couple years ago, and they cut it at a bud pointing upward, and they had the sprout shooting up. We don't want up. We want it to go down. So I'm going to cut it to a side bud, so now the weeping shape can continue down. It's very important you're pruning weeping plants to pick a bud pointing the direction that you want the plant to grow, which is sideways or downward. One of the big questions people ask is when to prune a plant. And one of the most important things is, if it's a blooming plant, you prune it after it flowers, because if you cut off the flowers, you'll be cutting off the berries as well later. Now, if you don't care, that doesn't matter. If you feel the plant needs to be pruned now, you have time now, but you'll be sacrificing the flowers. In this particular instance, we have a viburnum that's in deep shade and it's growing very tall and stretching. And I'm going to make it fill out a little bit, so I'm going to cut it at a lateral. Poof. Nice close cut there. It's going to branch out and fill out more. This one as well, it's growing very tall. I'm going to cut it right above, little sprout. And they can fill out, and if you want to, you can prune them again one more time, make them bushier yet. But the idea is to cut near a lateral branch. Too many people just chop a plant off where they want, and they leave a stump sticking up, and that's not proper. Once again, tall leggy part, we're going to cut down to a little bud. We're going to shrink the plant a little bit and make it more compact and make it bush out a little bit. We don't care about the flowers here today, we care about making the plant compact. Otherwise, you can accomplish the same thing pruning it after it flowers or in the fall after the berries are gone. But right now, we just want to make these plants fill out, so we're going to prune them today. Okay. Quite often at people's homes, their trees get so large they can't get grass to grow into the tree. It's too shady. And they want to limb the tree up and they're not really sure how. This is a large shrub. We're going to pretend it's a tree today. And instead of taking off the entire branch, I'm going to take off pieces. Piece here, piece above it. And I'm just going to keep working my way back into the tree slowly. You can always cut off more later. We're going to take off little pieces instead of the whole branch. You can always take the whole branch off later if we choose to. We want this to rise up. Now in this case, I am going to take the whole branch off with my little Velcro saw because there's not much left of that branch. I'm going to go up to here. We're just going to keep working our way through the tree until we get a bigger window. Once again, we have a situation. Do we want to take off this whole branch? It's going to leave kind of a big hole. Probably not. So we're going to take off some smaller pieces. And you notice when you take off each piece, it pops up a little bit. Come out here to the ends, take off a few more pieces. And just keep going slowly until you get what you want. You don't have to take off everything. And in the end, you can always take off a bigger branch. So there I've compromised. I've made more light come in, but I haven't made a big hole in the tree. See, we've pruned this tree up. We got more sunlight coming in. Walk under it to mow it, and we really haven't butchered the plant. We've just cut it nicely, and it'll keep filling back in. In a couple of years, we'll come back and we'll prune a few pieces off again. But that's how you raise a canopy to let more sunlight in. Here's another plant. It's called a rosy glow barberry. It's just gotten ahead of itself. It's all sprawly up on top. Got nice new growth coming up, but it's just all out of balance. It's hanging down here. We're going to do a little pruning on this and shape it up a little bit, and then it can grow nice and bushy again. We're just going to start off here in the middle. We're going to take back these older canes a little farther. Since it's got thorns, I use my pruners as a tool. Here's the little dead branch. We take that down out of the way. And we come back to our big branch. It's hanging down here and cut that back to live wood. The way it goes. And then we just work our way around the plant until we get rid of all the gangly stuff on top. Now we've got it all pruned back, got all this stray stuff away. You could cut it even harder if you wanted to. You have all this new growth that's going to fill out and get all bushy and pretty again. How to prune a barberry. Okay, this is a Mugo pine. All pines grow once a year in the spring, and the best time to prune them is right now. The candle, this new shoot coming out, you can either remove the center candle, cut it back, or you can cut across the candles like so. Depending on how hard you cut them, it's going to keep stretching and get bigger. If you want to keep it smaller, you cut your candles smaller and leave less. The idea is you cut your candles in the spring, and that's about the only pruning you want to do to a pine. Pine tree, Mugo pine, doesn't matter. All pines, cut the candles, but not in the very top center one in an upright pine tree. Okay, spruce and pines, when they're young, typically grow, or quite often grow, several tops. We want one, and only one. So we can either take, since we got a bunch here, I'll just remove these completely. Boom, boom, and boom. You want one top on a spruce. If you don't, the tree gets big and in 20 years it splits in half in an ice storm. One top, very important.